All right, go for it, Kyle.
Well, I had you at the last visit.
All right.
we'll-
Rob,
Rob, I guess one of the things I wanted to ask is kind of more of a local issue, or, well, I guess it's local and statewide. What would you say is like the condition of our prison system here? Because I think the legislature, Pat, made some changes and passed some laws that are gonna probably change classifications for felonies and stuff and maybe put more pressure on local county jails. What needs to change, do you think, to kind of avoid that, to make either the system more fair to everybody, or what do you think needs to happen there?
Well, number one, this is supposed to be a public safety system, and I think correctional officers should be treated as public safety officers. They need to have a safe working space. They need to have the ability to be heard when they're saying that our working conditions are not safe. I cannot talk to a correctional officer in the state of Iowa who doesn't tell me I have had every bodily fluid imaginable thrown at me. Right? Our prisons right now are overcrowded and they're understaffed. And then we've got an administration who thought it was a good idea to go out and say, hey, we're thinking about privatizing a big chunk of this, when their workforce was already understaffed, which led a bunch of other people just to quit because they were like, well, I'm not waiting around to hang out and see what happens with my job. I'm just going to go find something else to do right now, which means that they went to being even further understaffed right now. We need to address that. I don't think it's fair to our correctional officers, and it also means that more people are coming out of a prison probably in a condition where they're more likely to reoffend, because we haven't done very much to address the conditions that are going on in our prisons.
Well, and I've heard, the Department of Corrections is overburdened by, overpopulated with prisoners. I mean, is a solution just building more prisons like they said they were gonna do? Is that the solution, or part of it? Or?
They just passed a new bill that increased long-term prison sentences for repeat offenders. And I know that there was an LSA estimate on that said that there's gonna need to be new prisons built to accommodate that. I haven't dove in on it myself. But if that's the case, then we need to be thinking seriously about how we're gonna resolve that issue.
There's a constitutional amendment on the ballot that would require a 2/3 supermajority to raise either income taxes or corporate taxes, but not to raise sales and use taxes. Is that something you plan to support, and should Iowans support that amendment?
I'm not at the point where I've read the language on it, so we're gonna get there. Thank you. I can read this right now. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna make up my mind in front of you as I read it.
I mean, you've advocated for raising the sales tax to help fund the I Will Trust Fund.
I've advocated for funding I Will. That's something that my opponent and I have both stated that a position that we share.
So maybe not through a sales tax increase, a different way, or do you mean, or through a sales tax increase?
In having had the time to study the I Will thing, which has been on the ballot or in the Constitution for 16 years, I think that the constitutional amendment or the statutes that go along with it, because there are statutes as well, one piece or the other says that it's sales tax. Now, if it's the constitutional piece, then it would have to be funded through sales tax. If it's the legislative piece, obviously then you'd have the capacity to change that.
I think what's in the Constitution is that the next time the sales tax goes up, 3/8 has to go there. But I think they could fund it in another way if they wanted to. But I guess my question though is, the fiscal time bomb that you've talked about is probably going to hit 2028, 2029, 2030, whatever it is, when we're going to be out of reserves. And this constitutional amendment would make it almost impossible to raise income taxes or corporate taxes. So it seems like it would be forcing Iowa into a position of raising the more regressive taxes. So what's your feeling on that?
I'm going to read it when I have time to read it, and I'm not standing here with 5 minutes before a town hall starts. And in addition to reading it, I don't just want to read it, I want to come to an understanding of, okay, if your description of it is accurate, then what percentage of the budget right now is generated through corporate taxes? What percentage of the budget right now is generated through income tax? Where are we in corporate and income tax compared to other states? I know where we are, we got a 3.9% flat tax. What's it going to take if there's something else that has to get balanced? This is more complicated than that, and I'll do it on my own time. We're going to get there well before we get to November.
Rob, you've made no secret that, if you're elected governor, you know, you'll be working with a Republican legislature more often, more than likely. Do you kind of play the long game when it comes to your issues as far as getting them enacted, or do you feel like right now there are things that you can find common ground with the Republicans, you know, to get at least some of your agenda passed?
You know, if folks go to my website, I think they'll see the vast majority of stuff on there is the stuff that I think you can get the vast majority of Iowans to agree to. And if elected officials want to be faithful to their constituents, then the vast majority of stuff I'm suggesting is stuff that their constituents are going to look at and go, yeah, okay, I think that's pretty reasonable. Those are my issues. That's what I want to do. If we get all that accomplished, then, you know, we can have another conversation around another election time about where direction we go from there and what we're running on and where I stand and where whoever else is running stands. But I want to do the stuff that I've proposed doing, and I think that it's realistic and proper for an elected official to make their issues the ones that are actually doable. I don't spend a lot of time actually thinking about stuff that's just never going to happen, or deciding what exactly my position is on an issue that is never going to be in front of me for negotiation with the legislature, because there are real issues that I do need to inform myself on, and it's hard to find enough time in the day to do all of that, as well as doing the job, as well as, you know, being a husband and a dad too.
Yeah. You got anything else?
I guess one thing that's been brought up is sort of, you're busy on the campaign trail, and it's been alleged that you're neglecting your job as state auditor. So how much time do you spend doing sort of the state auditor job hat?
Yeah.
Are you going to the office regularly? How is that day job?
I've got a cell phone booster as well as a satellite a satellite dish in my truck. And so wherever I go in Iowa, I have the capacity to be connecting with whoever I need to. The job, in terms of the time in the office, tends to be a little bit more seasonal. I try to be around the office more in the legislative session. And there's two offices, to be clear. There's Capitol Building, and then there's Hoover Building. My office is in the Capitol Building. I try to be around the Capitol Building a lot more often in the legislative session. I don't do town halls then, because legislators are they're in town, they're around, they want to talk to me. If I'm there, that's a little bit easier. I tend to go out and talk to Iowans and talk to them about what they're hearing or what they're concerned about, or tell them about what's going on in the Capitol Building or in state government in the summer and into the fall. And then we also typically have a pie tour where we're going around with our pie awards and giving those awards to local governments that are working efficiently and effectively. It tends to be in the fall when people are kind of thinking about enjoying pie. So it's seasonal. It's a full-time job, I can tell you that.
Did anyone in the legislature ever explain to you why they didn't want to codify the PI program? I know you've been asking them to do that.
No, they didn't. You know, the legislature, and I think this goes back to just the idea that partisanship has run amok. They look at, you know, the 40% of Iowans who don't belong to their political party, and they think that there are zero good ideas that can come out of that. I think most Iowans are tired of that. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, this is the thing, not the codification of the PI program, but look at, you know, mandatory prison time for people who steal a bunch of money from taxpayers. I think I've been on Simon Conway's show 50 times, maybe 51. This is a place where he and I agree. We talk about it all the time. And he would tell you, as I would, that the reason that hasn't happened, even though I think the vast majority of Iowans would agree, if you steal $70,000 from taxpayers, you should have to spend some time in prison. He and I both tell you the reason it hasn't happened is because I happen to have a D behind my name. This is just stupid. I'm going to talk about this out there, and I do it at every town hall. Nobody in the state of Iowa, I think, other than a tiny number of people in either party, think that one party has a monopoly on good ideas. Iowans recognize that you can have a good idea that comes from anywhere, and I think they want their elected officials to support good ideas, not support a private club and pretend that the other private club has nothing to offer.
And that's all the time we have.
Okay. All right.